Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Deb. I couldn't just let you celebrate the life worth of Deborah Grace Winer and not participate today. Because, Deb, you have meant so much in my own life. You've spent your life making other people look better because of everything that you know and the research that you do, your love of music, the American Songbook, singers, songwriters, arrangers, musicians. All of us have benefited from the things that you do with your life's work and your passion. And, you make people's shows come together. You make us all look smarter than we really are. And you really have taught me so much, and I am so grateful. So I celebrate your life worth today with everybody else. And I'm so glad I could just pop on and send my love. Miss you a lot. Bye.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? Well, one thing that I'm celebrating is that it's a matinee day, and our theaters, thank God, are open again. It's also Cliche Day. Just before we went live, I was looking around on Facebook, as I'm wont to do from time to time, and one of our guest friend, Deborah Grace Winer, I'm going to bring her on. I was reading some of the comments, and one of her friends said, celebrates, is that a euphemism for something else? And I said, well, check us out and find out for yourself. And it is Cliche Day. So I'm going to ask Deb, first of all, welcome to the show. What are you celebrating today? And perhaps it is a euphemism for something. Do you have a favorite cliche? And if so, what is it? And what are you celebrating?
Let's see. Those are all good questions and all different questions. I think I have to find out which one of my friends was so difficult.
She wasn't difficult. She was asking.
Oh, okay. I think today, I can do it. I can do a celebration and a cliche at the same time. I think today is about celebrating today. It is the biggest cliche in the world, but I think that what we've learned, at least my takeaway during this crazy time filled with so much, is that what we have is today, and what we celebrate each other and celebrate today. It's not a really clever answer. I knew I should have been able to come up with something funnier than that, but honestly, I think that every day that we're around, to start with something celebratory as well as serious. Rebecca Luker was one of my besties, one of my couple of besties in the whole world, and we had I had the incredible privilege of caring for her with a very small circle of people who were her adopted family, and every day that I could be with Becca, as you know, we all know things got very bad. But every day that I could be with Becca, and we did it in teams a lot of times. So it was, people in the gang and stuff. And it was a celebration. As bad as things got, she was she was so filled with joy and life and fun and humor, and loved laughing her ass off, which is what we did a lot of times, and always found a way. And it was a lesson. And she said, it was very touching. She said, when things were bad, we'd go out to the park and sit around. And she said, if I could be useful to anybody at this time with this thing that's happening to me, it would be that people should look at their lives and go, if you can walk to the store you're in great shape. If you're that everything to celebrate the small things that we all take for granted. And she said this just like that. She says it very sincerely, if I could be useful, maybe what's happening would be like useful as a wake-up call, and I could be of some good to people, that people should just look around and just celebrate the little tiny things. And I think in our business, very often we are like that anyway. We're all sort of overgrown children to an extent, and take delight in things and get emotional about things. But I think about Becca, of course, every single day. And I think about how we were able to celebrate small things together in spite of everything, and laugh and, talk politics and all those things, but really, really appreciate who's in your life, who you're with at that moment, and just not look that much further than what's right in front of you at that moment, and not go too much into the future. So that's a really deep beginning to your show.
I am so
with such great theme music.
No, I am so glad that you went there, because I think of the past year and a half, especially as a pause.
Yeah.
I think that for all of us, especially those of us in the theater, we take for granted that we're going to buy a ticket and we're going to show up at the theater, and hopefully the artists that we hope to see will go on stage that night. The theater is going to be there. The ushers are going to let us to our seats, and everything will go like clockwork, as we hope that it will always be. But those of us who are in New York, we have lived through the AIDS crisis. We've lived through 9/11. We've lived through this pause. We have these setbacks. And, also we've lost incredible people, Nick Cordero this past year, Rebecca Luker, and these people who are these incredible lights in the theater that have taught us what it's like to go through these incredible moments, and to show us what life truly is all about. And we are starting out on this heavy note today.
No, but it's true. It can be a heavy note, but it's also a joyful note, because people like Nick and Becca, they lived life with joy and fun and friendship. And I think when I think of both of them, I've spent, of course, much more time, was much closer to Becca, but I think joy, I think happiness, I think light. I think honey and sunshine. I think, and I think that the takeaway for me, how many times in life does your entire business, every single person in it, get flattened into nothing? That like never happens. You can feel like it's happening sometime, but where every single person that except what I call my grown-up friends from grammar school and college, who have real career, real jobs. They're curing cancer and stuff. But all of us at the same time. And in one sense, it was a huge gift, because in Becca's case, we were all there. Nobody was doing anything. That was our focus. But in another sense, it really, like you say, it's a pause to think and really reflect on what do I like in my life? What do I want to spend my time on? Who do I want to spend my time with? And I think that's happy, because I think that's a silver lining. That's really a gift. What did you do? You were broadcasting the whole time.
I started doing this, and this is my gift to the community and to myself, because I am living vicariously through you and through everyone else, and I love it. My focus is on you, and that's what I want to focus on today. I want to ask you, what did your calendar look like last year or a year and a half ago, just before everything hit the proverbial fan?
That day I remember March, the 12th was Thursday. The 10th was a Tuesday.
That's right.
And the last thing we all did, in fact, speaking of Becca had just come out about her condition, which for anybody who doesn't know was a diagnosis of ALS very sort of suddenly, a couple of months earlier, but she came out with it at the end of January. And Sheldon Harnick and Liz Calloway and Karen Ziemba, the gang, was doing an evening of Sheldon stuff at the York Theater. And Jeff Saver was the music director. And so Becca, everybody talked Becca into appearing because she could sing beautifully, and she was appearing in a chair for the first time. And so my sister Jess and I told Becca that we would be her shadows, and we went over to help her get ready and take her over. And Danny Burstein, Becca's husband, was working in Moulin Rouge, and I think they shut down the next day because the evening at the York was a really successful, joyful, wonderful evening. And when I think about it, we were like sitting, side by side with people. And I was trying to do the elbow thing like they told us to, but there were people hugging Sheldon, who is not a teenager. And I was like, but it still seemed kind of normal. And then Danny got home from work. We went home and had wine and all that stuff. And Danny got home from work, and it was very joyful. And I think the very next day, Moulin Rouge shut down, I think at the matinee or something like that. And Thursday, that was it. A friend of mine who was in a rehearsal for a show called me up Thursday afternoon and said, go out and get groceries right now. I'm like, yeah. Sure. The zombie apocalypse is coming, and okay, I will. And who thought?
No, who knew?
Yeah, Mike, and I was about to. I had just agreed to write again the Jazz at Lincoln Center Gala, which was going to happen, hence a while hence. And then the next day, like Wednesday, they called and they went, whoop, no gala. And but yeah, things were busy. I was doing concerts. I had shows booked and things, and like all of us. And then, boy, you couldn't make this up though. If you had to make it up. Speaking of cliches, I think the whole last 2 years has been a cliche. And if you make the reference, science fiction movies, sort of weird science fiction movies of the 1950s, then it's a cliche. I was just thinking about, do you remember when we first met? What the first time we ever did? I was trying to think, because it seems like I've known you forever. And you're so nice in the community. You're always so gentlemanly and so gracious to people. And you have a positive vibe to you. And I remember that we did some panel. It was like a cabaret emergency.
That's right.
It was a panel that I think I was on the panel, you were leading the panel, and people started yelling. There was like a big fight of some kind, and I can't remember.
I remember it was for MAC, the Manhattan Association of Cabaret Clubs, for those who don't know. James Gavin was on the panel, and it was on the history of cabaret.
Was that what it was?
Yes, that's what it was.
But somebody got I don't remember if it was somebody in the audience or took issue, and there was like a big heated fight. I just remember people getting mad and yelling, and I'm thinking, what kind of a cabaret emergency could there be that people, especially in light of the last couple of years, that people would really be, they were just whatever. Was Jack Wrangler on the panel or something?
I think he was there.
Okay. Am I just being crazy?
Yeah, Margaret Whiting was there. And it was incredible. After Julie Wilson was there.
Yeah.
And, it was just
of course
incredible afternoon. Speaking of Julie Wilson.
Let's speak of Julie Wilson.
Yes, right there. Of course, Bible, what an incredible book.
Thank you.
There's so many things that I want to talk to you about. I asked, for a photograph of you, and I asked you to send me. Did I get this photograph? Yes, I did get this photograph of you. I want to share this. This is you, and I love, and I love when you wrote and you said, "Good humor never goes out of style."
Right. I was talking about the ice cream, but also the sentiment
after the fact. Because I asked for a photograph of you as a kid, because I always like to go back, and there's another funny story of me meeting your sister, years later, and me having a long conversation with your sister, and then you coming over to me saying, "I know you think you're talking to me." Do you remember this?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I don't specifically, but it happens all the time, and especially, around town, because we all have for whatever it is, our groupies and our people. And it's, we're a small community. And yes, people, especially when I was artistic director at the Lyrics and Lyricists at the Y, people would come up and, and compliment Jessie on the shows. And after a while, she just got tired of saying, you think you're, and she'd just go, thank you. Because we look much more alike now, and like our mom. My mom passed away right before the pandemic. She was just a wonderful, thank you. She was just a dynamo and very well known to a lot of people in our community, because she was all my pals' second mom, and sassy and dynamic and fearless. So yeah, but we all got to look very much alike. And Jessie and I look much more like each other now than we did when we were little. But
well, believe it or not, I get Rex Reed a lot.
Okay.
So a lot of people come up to me. I mean, just last week I was at Feinstein's, and a man comes up to me and he said, "Do you mind if my daughter has her picture taken with you?" And I thought it was odd, but I said, "Sure." And then he said, "Of course you are Rex Reed, aren't you?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And, and then he was embarrassed by it, but it happens to me. It happens more time than not. I was with Kay Ballard one night, and she's going, "You remind me of someone, you remind me." And she says, "But I can't put my finger on it." And then she went, "It's Rex Reed." It happens to me.
Yeah. I see that. Does anybody ever go up to you and say, "How dare you write that bad review about me"?
No.
Okay, that's good.
So that has not happened. And
but you're both very handsome. Rex is a very handsome and dear friend of mine.
He wrote the foreword to your book.
He did.
So I bring that up. But
he's the best.
So many hats, Deb. I mean, I want to know where it began for you. I mean, you, first of all, when you think of the Great American Songbook, you, Michael Feinstein, you are, and I put you together because you both are carrying that banner and taking it, to the next generation. Where did that love for the Great American Songbook begin for you? Did you grow up in a household surrounded by music?
Yeah, I'm from Manhattan, and which doesn't mean anything except that my mom was a former concert pianist. She had been a child prodigy and had like a 20-year career by the time she was 27 or something, and married my dad, who was also, we're all New Yorkers, and Dad was a cardiologist, an internist, and practiced at Lenox Hill Hospital mostly. And so they had a lot of, they were just in a circle of friends who were, some interesting people who were accomplishing interesting things. They had a lot of friends who were artistic in theater and music and things. And I grew up with a lot of people's kids. I went to a school called the Rudolph Steiner School, which is a Waldorf school on 79th Street. And Barbara Cook's, I knew Barbara Cook from the time I was a child because her son Adam, who freakishly passed away over the summer, he and I grew up together. And
I didn't know that. He died this summer?
Yeah, it was something that just never should have happened. He had a health condition and something got out of control that shouldn't have, and it should not have happened. But but Adam and Adam's like probably I have other friends. I was Adam's prom date. I was his oldest friend, and we grew up together since I was 6. He was a little older, and so I knew Barbara since I was a kid. And it's that there's a kind of circle. So I was watching old MGM movies. That I always skewed retro, probably like you. I out of the box, loved Ella Fitzgerald and Peggy Lee and Louis Armstrong and Nat Cole, and that's who I liked to listen to when I was and I'm leaving out a raft of hugely wonderful singers, but I had every album in Ella's songbook series, and I watched old movies on TV, and I loved the Warner Brothers musicals and the MGM musicals, and then every once in a while it was special. I'd go to a Broadway show, although I was raised much more, my parents were more like the opera and the Philharmonic, my mom coming from classical music, but my dad had a lot of theater friends. I grew up with, it's not to be name dropping, it's just that it's just
No problem.
since you asked, but
I love to hear those names. So
but Myrna Loy, if anybody remembers who Myrna Loy is anymore, she was an old movie star from MGM, and she was the original, Nora Charles and Nick and Nora, the Thin Man. And so Myrna Loy was Aunt Myrna to Jesse and me. She was our sort of like surrogate godmother, but she was like an adopted aunt, and she used to come. We spent Thanksgivings and she used to come stay with us out in the country in the summertime. And so I was kind of steeped in whatever was old. Of course, it was not, our generation, everybody was into rock concerts and whatever, but I would go to, see whatever, Warner Brothers movie was playing at one of the revival houses we used to have in New York. And I'd go with my friends, or I'd just be watching TV or like that. So that's how I
have to ask you, because I used to go to the Regency when I first moved to New York. That was my go-to place. I moved to New York in 1979. And then when the Regency shut down, I was actually in the picket line when they were changing it from a retro house to first run movies. Then they opened a movie theater on 57th Street. I don't know if you remember this. And Myrna Loy did the ribbon cutting ceremony. And
that's funny.
I was there for that. And the first movie they showed was Easter Parade. And she was there for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So I was wondering if you happened to be there.
Wow. I don't remember that. I don't know if I was there. Somebody told me the greatest story about her. It was Ron Cohn, who was Julie Wilson's manager, and he had been an activist lawyer in civil rights. And he said that, she had been made, she worked with Eleanor Roosevelt. She was very much a political activist. And I think this is a good time for people to be, whatever your political leanings are, I know we don't do politics here, but to just be aware of justice in the world. And she was very aware of justice in the world and worked, and I learned that partly from her, as well as my parents. And Ron said that she for a while was the chairman of against discrimination in housing, I think for the UN or something. Wow. And she always lent her celebrity to stuff like that. And he said that in Newark, which was in terrible circumstances whenever this happened, probably it must have been in the 70s, that he had a meeting with her, he said, with all the activists from Newark trying to improve the housing project situation and all of that. And he said that the place that the whatever government municipal thing gave them to meet turned out to be like an empty office that had no furniture in it. And he said that they all got in there horrified that there was no furniture in this place. There was no place to sit. And he said that Myrna took off her mink coat and spread it down on the ground like a beach blanket and said, "Come on, kids, let's sit on this." And that was very her. And I said to her, I remember when she got that coat, because when I was a kid, she did one of those Black Glamour ads.
Oh, yes.
What becomes a legend most, I was a kid. And I remember that she did the ad.
And
yes. She got to keep the coat. So that was the thing. And, but yeah, it's fun. I think there's colorful personalities wherever you grow up. And I think it's like I've always loved Comden and Green. I've always been, Elaine May is one of my absolute idols. And Nichols and May is one act that I wish that I had been old enough. I mean, it was before my time, but to be able to go see Nichols and May in person would have been spectacular. And as a woman writer, I think that, she makes a great role model. Betty Comden was another one. And I always wondered about Comden and Green. They saw life like that, and I just wondered, is it that they saw life really skewed like that? Or is it that those people, that life is really skewed and you just either notice it or you don't? So it's one of those chicken and egg things.
Funny story. I went to a double feature at the Film Forum of The Bandwagon and Singing in the Rain. And someone asked them, they said the Bandwagon, and even today, is such a modern film from the time that it was made. How did you go about making such a modern film for today's times at that time? And Betty Comden said, well, we got up one morning and we said, we're going to make a modern film. And, but their story, I want to interrupt your story for this.
That's it.
The story about how the movie version of On the Town came about, which I will share with you later, is just so interesting because they threw the script out completely from the original Broadway production, but it was their first foray in Hollywood, and they had to rewrite the script, which was parallel to what they wrote for Broadway, but they knew what they had to do in order to survive in Hollywood.
Right.
And just brilliant.
Right. And the Comden and Green scripts alone, the screenplays alone, is something to marvel at, because Auntie Mame is one of the best written movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their script for Auntie Mame is spectacular. And as they're, everything they did, the Bandwagon and Singing in the Rain, those movies are partly so good, not because it's just got the best songs in the world in them, but those scripts are so good. And they really, really knew what they were doing. And they had such a funny sense of humor. I always say, I still always repeat things from the Auntie Mame. It's like, we did this when the little kid comes in. He says, yes, we paid Fish Family right after yogurt time. And I was like, yes,
Right.
Yogurt time.
Now,
of course, why not?
Did you ever perform yourself as a kid?
I did the usual requisite in school, had the lead and everything kind of thing. So I grew up singing and acting and doing all that stuff and playing instruments. And then I was a playwright from the age of, I just started writing, at the age of maybe 8. I think I was that kid, my family had a little place in Westport, Connecticut, for weekends and summers and things. And I was that kid in the neighborhood that would be like okay, this is the show we're going to put on. And I'm going to I was that kid, and to gather and I'm still doing it. And, and it's really fun, because the pandemic has, when I finally could sort of, everybody's kind of like got up off the couch at a certain point. And I had I did some wrote some scripts for virtual galas and stuff. But the pandemic has actually brought some wonderful writing stuff for me, which is my main, I think in music and 3 dimensions and all of that. So I'm a dramatist, but I always think in terms of what's the entire show going to be. I had this wonderful project come across my lap, which I am so excited about. And it's got a producer. It's being produced by Kiowa Productions, aimed for Broadway. And it's called Salvatore Mundi, the Musical. And it's about the most expensive painting in the world. It's about the so-called Leonardo that nobody's quite sure is a Leonardo or not, because there's big authenticity issues. That was auctioned off by, well, it's Christie's, but it goes unnamed in any further thing, for $450 million. And it didn't seem to matter that there were authenticity issues, because it was Christ holding an orb, and just the branding of it being Leonardo. They put it in a contemporary auction next to the Warhol, which was just unheard of. It's unheard of in old master stuff. And just the idea of marketing this painting, it was found practically in a dustbin and, bought for like $1,100 or something, and parlayed into the most expensive painting in the world. And it's a real commentary on our time. And it's it's just unbelievable characters, hilariously funny, and really, really reflective of the age that we live in, where marketing and media and opinion matter more than actual fact. So that's a fantastic thing, and I just finished writing the first draft of the book for that. So I'm very excited about it.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your process. Where do you find that you get a lot of your inspiration from? You've had this from outside sources. It seems to me as if you've had this phenomenal career. The work that you've done with lyrics and lyricists, the work that you do with Feinstein's, putting these glorious reviews together, the shows that you've done for the Cabaret Convention, just the way you shape them, the way you put them together. Did you plan this out, or is it just by happenstance?
No, it's happenstance. There's people who still come up to me and go, what exactly do you do? Because I don't know how to answer that. It's the perfect, it's like this thing that happened. And I have been told, and it makes me happy, that I've actually helped develop the format in a theatrical way. That there's I'm a dramatist by breeding and training and who I am, and I'm also a so-called expert but mostly joyful lover of all Broadway, American Songbook, classic standards and classic jazz vocal stuff. And my two mentors are Robert Kimball, who wrote all the complete lyrics of, and Sheldon Harnick. And who could ask for anything more? As somebody should write that in the song. And so it's to me, it's just this incredibly joyful happenstance of, it's like that when I was a kid, there was a Reese's peanut butter cup commercial, and somebody trips on the stairs and the chocolate goes with the peanut butter. Hey, you've got your chocolate in no, you've got my, right. Anyway, it's like that. And so for doing these kinds of reviews, I have the theatrical know-how because I'm a theater artist, and I through the years have written books and articles. I used to contribute to the Sunday Times Arts and Leisure about this. I have the knowledge and expertise about this. And so it put it all together. And what you do is you get just glorious music with wonderful stories, because that's what life is about, stories. And then kind of the theatrical deliciousness of being able to put things that are really theatrical together and really create shows that are really shows. And the best part of all is the people I get to collaborate with. It's a coming together of my favorite people in our community, and we all do it for joy. I mean, certainly not for the big bucks. So, and it's the idea of being able, my chief musical collaborator for so many years was John Otto, who was Rosemary Clooney's musical director. And again, he was another, suddenly at 63, I think, suddenly passed away overnight, just out of the blue, 2.5 years ago, I think. That was a big blow. I've worked a lot with Mark Waldrop, who is he created When Pigs Fly, and he's a master of reviews. And it's all about, I work with, just so blessed to work with so many wonderful, wonderful people like Rob Fisher and Kathleen Marshall. And, and we all we're still those kids in the neighborhood who go, ooh, let's make something. Let's do something. And if for no other reason, it's because we get to be together. And I find out that's what everybody's big joy is to get together, to create anything. We'll create something for 54 Below or a big audience. We all work on a sliding scale or whatever the budget happens to be for that. And you get the chance to work and play with people that you maybe haven't seen in a while, or maybe you were their bridesmaid, or maybe, whatever. It's tremendously joyful and rewarding, and that music, it's just a huge gift.
You were with the 92nd Street Y for 9 years, am I correct?
9 seasons, 10 years. And I was my brilliant predecessor, Kristen Lancino, who had come from Carnegie Hall, was the one who really revamped that whole program with Rob Fisher, and who had a big hand in that. And she was there for a few seasons. I replaced her. And so I was an invited guest artistic director, sort of a guest curator. I had done 3 shows before they offered me the thing, because my shows were, I guess, they'd gone well.
Yes, they were very well. When you were putting together a season, are ideas constantly running through your head? Are people coming to you with ideas? First of all, let's talk about the process of putting a season together for something such as the 92nd Street Y, with lyrics and lyricist. And of course, the focus is on the lyrics and the lyricist.
Right.
Let's start there. What was your main goal in putting a season together?
My main goal was to really find kind of vehicle is the wrong word, but find a creative construct where we could feature the best music with the best artists, but also put it into a specific construct where we could tell a story and give it the sort of most engaging, really engage the audiences in the best possible way. I think that there are a lot of, and it can work very well sometimes, or often, where you have like an omnibus of lots of different, singers, artists, material in an evening, and that's lovely. But I kind of had this vision of that I looked at them as reviews, not just a concert, and that every review has to have a focus and take the audience on a journey. And and how you pace it, and the music that you choose, and the artists that you choose to do that, and kind of where everything goes. It's a construction. It's really a construction. There's sort of a right way to construct an evening and a way that is less effective. And you make it so that they have some tremendous, joyful uplift, and then you bring them down with just that right singer to just absolutely break your heart in something very quiet, just with a piano. And so there's really an art to creating these things, and the creative process itself. A lot of that art is art and arc is invisible. It's like writing the book to a musical. It's absolutely thankless, except if you like to do it, which I do, because nobody notices when it's good and working. Nobody knows that it's there, and when it's not working,
it's alchemy. It's true alchemy.
Yeah, and shows. I think creating shows are like that, and I love doing it, and I love the particular. This kind of particular genre, which I've sort of enjoyed pushing forward as its own genre, in making it really theatrical, and making it a theatrical experience, and yet having it be really immediate, and having that music be just as good as. I mean, there's so many wonderful, really, really talented singers. I've been privileged to sort of only work with people who are just really have something extraordinary to bring. And that's a total joy too.
Oh my God. I went, as I was prepping to do this, I went, and the people that you've worked with, Cleo Blackhurst and Rebecca Luker and Darius DeHaas, and I mean, even some singers that I was not familiar with, went and listened to their body of worth, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal people that you've worked with.
And my best friend, Karen Ziamba.
Karen Ziamba, who I'm crazy about. I'm crazy about her.
The best.
But in addition to doing all these, how many books have you written?
I've written 4. I did them mostly at a certain period of my life when I was sort of earlier in my career. Well, early. That's when I'd started out doing it. And one is a book on opera, of opera singers, which I did for fun. My only real honest job that I've had in my life as a not really an adult. I was 2 years out of college, or for the 2 years, my first 2 years out of college was at the Met Opera. And I worked at Opera News Magazine, and I teamed up with a wonderful guy named Dennis McGovern, who's no longer with us. And we wrote this book called I Remember Too Much, and it was 89 opera stars. It was really 88 opera stars and Garson Kanin, but it was too long a subtitle. And that was a book of reminiscences and things like that. And then, of course, musical theater was always my first thing. And I did that. I was booked with Dennis called Sing Out Louise, which was, again, it was about 150 people that were stars and people who had been in the ensembles of many shows. And that was a sort of free-for-all about golden age of musical theater. And then the book that you held up, which is very close to my heart, about, I call it the three ladies books, Rosemary Clooney, Barbara Cook, and Julie Wilson. And I followed them all for a year. I knew all of them personally before that. And I just hung out. And people would go, wait, are you calling that work? You're going to Rainbow and Stars again to hang out? You telling me you're going to work? So Yeah, that was a total joy. And then I wrote a book on Dorothy Fields, who I think is one of.
Dorothy Fields, first of all, today, again in my research, today is Annie Oakley's birthday, the real Annie Oakley.
Yay!
That's why I was listening to Annie Get Your Gun as we were getting ready. And of course, Dorothy and Herbert Fields wrote the book for. When you chose to write a book, or maybe it chose you, where does the inspiration come from that you're going to sit down and you're going to devote a lot of time to write this book? Carol Channing says writing a book is a solitary profession.
Yeah.
In the case of writing this book, of course, you are living vicariously through 3 phenomenal women and being able to spend a lot of time with them. But with someone like Dorothy Fields, you are very much living a solitary existence. How long did it take to write the book, first of all?
I think it took about 2.5 years to write that book. That book came about because my publisher, well, it came about for a couple of reasons. I, of course, again, being a woman writer, you idolize Dorothy Fields. I was looking for, and she's just one of the, never mind woman or not woman, she's one of the greatest lyricists ever. And the sort of the mothership to every woman lyricist that came after her, from Carolyn Lee, who is just a genius, to Betty Comden, to all of the singer-songwriters that came later in the 60s, and Lynn Ahrens, of course, and on and on. Amanda McBroom. But I couldn't find anything about her. I couldn't believe that there wasn't a book, and there was no book of collected lyrics. And then to give credit where it's due, is a funny coincidence. I had a wonderful editor at Macmillan at the time who did the last book with me, named Jonathan Winer. And he said one day, my father's uncle was Dorothy Fields' first husband, the bad guy one, and the one who was terrible to her, and she divorced early on, or they separated early on, and that was just a coincidence. And we got to talking about Dorothy Fields and realized that there was nothing on her. And at the same time, Barbara Cook was doing a Dorothy Fields show at the Carlisle, and it's all sort of came together. And it was like, yeah, that should be our next project. And that was totally fun. I spent a lot of time in the archives at Lincoln Center Library, where her papers are, going through boxes of stuff where there was like spec stuff that she and Cy Coleman. No, I'm sorry. That was when I went through the Carolyn Lee papers. But there was also spec stuff that she had written for other things that never got published, and all of that. Yeah, I haven't written, but the book business has changed a lot. I was always kind of more in. I was sort of more into writing for the theater and to doing shows for the theater. I learned very, very early on that I could write about what I knew about, what I loved, and that could sort of make me a sort of a living. And it turned out to be like tremendously interesting, and that's kind of how I developed that side of. That was an accident. Developing the side that was the expert side was just an accident. I just followed that path, and it kind of all fit together.
Are you interested in writing another book?
Every once in a while I think about it and talk about it, maybe, but those kinds of books on kind of historical, the book business has changed an awful lot. And I kind of did it. I did it 4 times. Mm-hmm. And, if there was something really interesting or fun, I wouldn't say no. I'm not sure. Have you found that your attention span has diminished during the pandemic? Mine has.
Well, I don't think that it has. I think it's
okay.
I think it's expanded a lot. I'm going to recommend a book to you. It's called The Listening Path, and it's by it's Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. Have you read any of her books?
I know the book. I haven't read it.
And The Listening Path is truly about really listening and listening to the inner voice, listening to all these things that are around us, and it's helped tremendously. And I.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I'll have will I have the attention span to actually read the book though?
It's a 6-week course, and I actually have a book that I lead with this. But with all that you've done, and you come from the world of musical theater, or your mother, in classic and then musical theater, and then cabaret. I want to talk about these three iconic women for a moment: Rosemary Clooney, and Barbara Cook, and Julie Wilson. Julie Wilson, she used to call here all the time. My husband Danny, she would call and she'd say, "Richard, I love you, but I'm crazy about that Danny."
Crazy about him.
She loved Danny. She loved him. Just the greatest.
The greatest.
I loved her so much, and I miss her tremendously.
Me too.
I want to, let's start with Barbara Cook. I want to know what. I want to know what you learned from each one, that you learned from her artistically, and a life lesson that you learned from her.
That is such a great question. I hope I don't. Did I sign an inanity clause before I did it? So I learned so much from each of them. Barbara, as I said, I knew from as a child, and I sort of remember her in all her different kind of phases. I mean, by the time I was old enough to remember anything, she already was kind of like the big mama kind of figure. And I spent a lot of time with her, and I got to spend time with her when she and Wally put together, Wally Harper, who was her main collaborator until 2004 when he passed. Yeah. When they put together shows, and it was she had a real sense of what was right for her and what wasn't right. What she felt. She did it from intuition, and she did it from. She had a lot of theater training. And so she had that kind of way to articulate things that, for instance, Rosemary could have articulated anything. She was enormously articulate, but she didn't choose to talk about what great singing was, or what, Barbara started giving master classes. Mm-hmm. I was actually at the first one that she did at Juilliard. And what she did was she incorporated a lot of her theater training into how she taught those classes. And it's funny, Barbara had a thing that she would famously say at those classes that says, "You are enough." And I was talking to a veteran pal of mine who's a fantastic Broadway star and singer, saying, not always, you are enough if you do all your homework and you really put the work in and the talent. But the way Barbara meant it is that people want to layer on a lot of stuff. Barbara had been through so much that she came to just be herself. She also was always working to quell her anxiety. And I just remember her starting to say in public, she said, she says, I used to be a very scared young girl. Now I'm a very scared old girl. and she sort of learned to embrace that, and kind of like warts and all. And she became very, very, I think it made her comfortable at just showing who she was and kind of letting it be, and not worrying about hiding things. I also learned an enormous amount about, choosing material. And like I said, that thing about having that instinct of this is right, this is not right. And also the idea of just kind of getting up there to perform and saying almost whatever comes out of your mouth. She and Rosemary were very similar that way. They could have done stand-up. If you'd taken away all the music, you could have stuck them up there on a stage and let them just run, and they would have you in stitches. And half of it was like, wait, did you actually really say that? There's an audience here, And I think that sort of freedom and that sort of authenticity. I think what I learned from all of them was authenticity in different ways. From Rosemary, I learned, so much. And I learned that, like I said, she was not good at talking about the nuts and bolts of singing and whatever, or teaching the way Barbara did. But the thing that stuck with me is I once said toward the end of her life, I said, Rose, what's your definition of great singing? And she said, great singing is all about one thing. It's all about, listen, I want to tell you something. And I was like, wow, that's it. And that's what it is. Listen, I want to tell you something. And when you think of, I mean, talk about authenticity, that sort of, just say it. And she had Barbara had that freakish is the wrong word, but that voice was the eighth wonder of the world. Who in the world is in their 80s and has a pristine lyric soprano? It just doesn't happen. And so, but Rosemary, who also had asthma and breathing issues, that voice kind of diminished as time went on. But she was so, there's these women are storytellers, all of them. And like Rose it was like conversation. She would sort of breathe the music in conversation. The other thing I learned from Rose is that she said she learned this from Bing Crosby, is that when you're up there, never try to hide anything from the audience. If you screw up or something, you take the audience in with you and just say, oh, that was, Barbara used to do that too. Oh, let's start that again. Because she said, as soon as the audience senses that you're trying to put something over on them, they will become uncomfortable. As long as you just bear it all, they're going to be with you and there's nothing to be afraid of. And I really take a lot from that. You can take that into life. You can take that anywhere. All these women love to laugh, particularly Rosemary and Barbara loved to laugh. There were nights at the Carlisle where people would complain after the desk would get calls because it would be late. She'd do 2 shows and, the second one was 11 o'clock. It's kind of funny to think of it because it wasn't that long ago, but nobody does an 11 o'clock show anymore, really. No. At least not a big headliner. And we'd go back up to the suite and she'd get out in her corset and all that stuff. And with her assistant Louise, and the other people would be that we'd just be laughing and laughing. And she would like come out and sometimes people would call and the desk would say, excuse me, we've had complaints about noise. And we were just,
oh, wow.
And, and Julie was this incredible combination of artifice and authenticity. I mean, she was the most real person. And then she could do all this magical stuff with the boas and the she'd be in her 80s and she would just mesmerize men in the audience. She'd say, what's your name? And they'd say, oh, Michael. She'd say, hello, Michael. Would you like to help me into my bow? And he'd go,
and then put it in a brown paper bag and get on the subway and go home.
Totally.
Unbelievable. Well, we're almost at the end of our show. I could go on for hours with you.
But the one thing I want to say that 2 things I want to say. It's too early to announce it yet, but I'm plotting and planning with a very major institution to sort of bring more joy for those of us who love our kind of shows and our kind of music. So I'm very excited about it and kind of stay tuned because I've been having a good time.
Ready to announce it?
I'm sorry, I can't. It's too early.
No, I said, will you come back here when you're ready to announce it?
Sure, anytime. And then just for laughs, I cannot not say this because the pandemic has been so crazy. When nobody was doing anything besides looking after Becca, Emily Skinner and I walked 7 miles every single day. That's what we did. We just took a power walk back and forth and, talked about it. And out of that, the idea that was anybody ever going to have a career again, ever. I got this idea and I'm working on it. It's going to drop as a podcast soon. It is an old-fashioned audio, like old-fashioned radio type, but it's satirical adventure series, and it's about a band of middle-aged women superheroes that are in a helplessness therapy group led by an ancient old Jewish lady therapist. And in an unfortunate accident, they get transformed to have superpowers to save the world from a world-destroying organization called Orwell that is going to destroy democracy through disinformation and hatred. And so my cast, which I just have to say, is we're good. So Judy Blazer is the old Jewish lady therapist who also gets transformed into their oracle. And the cast is Karen Ziemba, Emily Skinner, Donna Lynn Champlin, Nancy Opal, and Keisha Lewis. And we recently had we're going to record Jason Gra as a money launderer, Russian billionaire money launderer, and other guests. A wonderful voice actor named Kevin I saw playing the flying, transformed, obnoxious French cat. So we're doing this as a podcast, and wow. It's gonna happen soon, and it's the most fun thing. It's a little bit of cross between Rocky and Bullwinkle and James Bond and the Avengers and your superhero story. So well,
let me know everything, and I will post it and let the world know about this. This is wonderful. I think that's great.
Thank you. So yeah, we gotta celebrate, right? Like you say, we gotta celebrate.
Before you go, I always end my shows. This is my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. He always ended his shows with his list of questions.
Okay.
I'm not taking his questions. These are random questions that I pulled for you today.
Okay.
So they're random. So let's just go with it. And the first question that I'm going to ask you, when have you come closest to meeting the devil in this business?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure I want to tell that story on it was.
Don't mention any names or give away.
It was an enormous betrayal of a friend, a very, very, very dear friend who I trusted everything in my business with as well. And it was 4 years ago.
Wow.
It was at the time when I departed the Y.
Wow. Have you been watching Impeachment?
No.
Oh my God. The Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
Talk about betrayal. I mean, just be careful. Everyone who's watching out there with people you trust, because Monica Lewinsky is the executive producer of this series. So it's very interesting that now she's getting to tell her story in her own words. So I'm sorry that happened to you.
Oh, you know what? It's all part of the rich pageantry of life. And it's, it all makes a great story. And it makes us, it makes the rest of life richer.
And maybe you've just answered the next question. What is the biggest injustice that you've ever suffered in your career? Maybe you just answered that.
Oh, no. There's, I think that I'm gonna cop to a genericism on this one, because I think that all of our careers as artists, especially try being a playwright with nonprofit theaters, and there's limited slots and whatever. I think that there's injustices that happen to all of us. I mean, I'm not, obviously this has nothing to do with racial injustice or whatever. I'm not talking about that kind of injustice, because I am not in that sphere of having that, being in that position. Mm-hmm. So my disclaimer is that I'm just talking about ordinary everyday injustices. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just part of our thing. I think we all want jobs that we should get, that we did get, that then goes to somebody else, and or like those kinds of things. And I think it's it's a common denominator, and in some way is a badge of honor. You have to look at it that way.
That's a great way of looking at it. I like that. Who has the strongest personality among the people that you know in this business?
What a fantastic question. That's a tough one, because we have some really strong personalities. I mean, I think that you also, and people in I know my contemporaries and generation, we have had the privilege of working and playing with people like, if you get to hang around with Elaine Stritch, as I did, or a Rosemary Clooney, or a Barbara Cook, or a Cheetah, fantastic, what a fantastic person, or anybody in between. I think those, like Marge Champion was a Marge was
dear.
my dear girlfriend and a mentor, and I used to go to her house and watch. We used to watch. She used to like watching Diane Sawyer on the news, and then we'd watch Jeopardy, and then we'd either order in or go out. And opinion. There was not an unexpressed opinion that Marge had, and it was all smart. Wasn't always what you wanted to hear, but it was all smart and never meant with any. But these are strong personalities. My mom.
When I went out to when Carol Channing was a dear friend of mine.
Yes, I remember.
And I went out for her memorial, and I went and spent the day with Marge, who was 100 at the time.
Yeah.
Still sharp as a tack. We had the most incredible day together. I'm going to send you a clip of Marge and I together dancing together at my 50th birthday, which was one of my true highlights of my life.
I want to see that. I want to see that clip. She was spectacular. I know her mainly through Rex originally.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to ask you, and I asked this question for people who feel low. I mean, this pandemic excluded. When I asked this question, when was your career most out of control, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, it's endemic to our business. I think that one thing I remember Barbara Cook saying, is that when she won the Tony for The Music Man, the next day was the lowest day. It was one of the most depressed days of her life, because she suddenly thought, wow, is this, to quote a cliche, is that all there is? And she said it was the most curious thing. And I think there's different kinds of, I think this is a really hard business. And I think that by nature, we are sensitive people going into it. Otherwise, we would not be in this business. And I'll tell you, like everybody, I've been through some really bad times. I think that with the changes at the Y, and after that, I had a very difficult time. It didn't stop me in my work, because I just turned my attention to working with 54 Below, which I loved, and Birdland as well, and I just spread it out among a lot of different places. But I'll tell you, when you're in a groove of something and then things change, or things happen that you don't expect to, or you get, in general, you get kicked around a lot in this business. You get, if you're a writer or an actor, you get rejected from things, or jobs fall through, or something closes, or reviews. It's just like rejections are us. And I find that the thing that I keep coming back to is the people that I love. I'm a big believer in chosen family. And I'm incredibly blessed to have my immediate family, my sister, and until recently, my mom. My dad left us a very long time ago, but my chosen family in this, my pals, they are like my sisters and brothers and cousins, and I'm really blessed. And I honestly think turning to people and just kind of being there for each other is the thing that gets us all through, because everybody gets it when you're having a bad time. And the pandemic has just been the pits.
Absolutely.
For everybody, the days, I'd go walking, or I'd go meet Karen Ziamba across the park, or something like that. But, a lot of days you just go, yeah, I really should clean out my closets, but I can't get up off the couch. Will we ever work again?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What is the greatest life-forming experience that you've ever had in this business?
Oh, again, that's such a great question. I think maybe those three ladies, one of them is doing that book with Rosemary, Barbara, and Julie, because I did it when I was really very young, and I appreciated that they had been through so much. All three of them, it's what gave me the idea for the book. They all became stars early on in their careers. They all crashed and burned for different reasons and had to begin life again as middle-aged women. In Rose and Barbara's case, gaining a lot of weight. They were not the sylph-like sexy, chicks that they had been before. And I think that was life-changing to me, because I learned, it's like I wanted their wisdom. I wanted to hear their stories. And I wanted to learn like how they got to your last question. How did they get through things? How do you be Rosemary Clooney and be like literally one of the biggest stars in the world with not one but 2 TV shows, huge recording contracts, and then like barely a year later, you are singing in the lounge at the Holiday Inn in Ventura for 3 drunks. And that's the only job you can get. And how do you even do that? And I think, so that was hugely life-changing for me. And I think that I would tack on to that every older artist that I had the privilege to meet and be with and work with from, I got to write a gala with and write for Sid Charisse one time and Esther Williams and, or people like Cheetah or people like, Marge Champion and Polly Bergen and all the people, wonderful people that I had a chance to be close to and listen to their stories. And I was always that kid from as a kid who said, tell me more, tell me another theater story, tell me who else what, and I just wanted to hear it. And I think that's what I learned from. And it's also for the long haul, stuff comes and goes. And it's the people around you and how you treat the people around you and how they treat you that gives you that love and that family and together to go through and joy. Because what else is there? As we learn from our friends, our fallen comrades of late, this is the whole ball game.
This is it.
This is it.
What single word do you hate the most?
What single word do I hate? Oh, I wish I'd had time to prepare. What single word do I hate the most? I am so trying to think of something clever right now, or even something. The single word I hate the most is hate.
Okay, good. Same here. What is the most valuable thing that you own?
That I own? Boy, that's funny because I don't put a whole lot of truck in things.
Okay.
I don't care about things. I mean, I love my scooter. It's not the most valuable thing that I own, but I ride a kick scooter around, never in traffic. And I love my stuff. I loved painting my apartment myself during the pandemic. I did a pretty good job too.
Oh.
And my new IKEA couch, but there's nothing, I'm sure that there's something that I'm really missing, but my big answer is that I was brought up by my wonderful mom who had impeccable taste and was also cavalier, who said, use the best dishes, use the best stuff, collect it, use it, enjoy it. Don't put it away. And then if you get tired of it, throw it off the terrace, throw it in the fireplace, whatever. And so it's this kind of dual things of really appreciating things, I love nifty things and cool, beautiful things. And I also love not caring as much as it makes my life nifty and fun, but I don't give it value. I love, earrings that my friends give me, or, like those kinds of things. The most valuable things are the things that people I love have given me.
That's wonderful. Who is the person most similar to you in the world, in your opinion?
In the world today?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, let's see. Well, when I was a kid, I used to want the TV movie of my life. I wanted to be played by Anne Margaret, but that's kind of dated. No, I'm kidding.
I like that.
I don't know anybody who is similar to me. And maybe if I did, then I'd be able to say, okay, that's how you do it. It's a great question. I don't have an answer for it.
Okay. And this is my last question. What is the most surprising action that you have ever taken in your career?
In my career? Again, great question. What did I do that was really surprising? I think that I took the job at the Y because it was such a surprise. I thought I was working on my 3rd show there, and the head of concerts at the time called me on a sleeting Sunday afternoon, and I thought I was in trouble for something, it's the kid in me. And she called me up and she had me in. Nobody was there, and basically said that my predecessor was leaving, and that they would like to. They liked the 2 shows that I had done. Could I make the rest of the series like those 2 shows? And they would like to offer me the job on the spot, and they would not do a search if I said yes. And I said, I know how to do all that. But I think that the fact that it was all of a sudden there was an aspect of producing, it was running a whole series. I had never done anything like that in my life. And I just went, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because it was like doing it so that I would get to make the shows that I knew how to do, but being in that position, and I learned it all. But I was very surprised at myself that, and I think other people were surprised too, because I had never done anything like that before.
And
being an artistic director.
They were incredible. Don't go anywhere for a moment. I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. I'm sure I can speak for Deb when I say this. I don't like to speak for anyone else, but in this case, I will. Those of us who are in the business, we don't take it for granted when you spend a little time with us. So for the fact that you spent an hour, a little bit longer today with us, thank you. It means the world to us, and we don't take it for granted. If this is your first time at Richard Skipper Celebrates, my hope is that you will, on my banner, there's a button that says join the celebration. I have that button instead of the word subscribe, because to me, the word subscribe means that you're a faceless person, and you mean more to me than just a subscriber. I want you to be part of this process. So join the celebration, leave a comment, let us know what you think of the show. Share this with your friends. Tell your friends about this show. There have been over 300 other shows that I've done prior to this. Check them out. I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. And hopefully there'll be over 300 more. Also, check out the other work that Deb is doing, the books that she's written, the shows that are coming up. I will be leaving comments about what she's doing on this page and beyond, so please check her out. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the third name that pops up, reach out with a phone call, not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. As my dear friend David Friedman, I think you know David, he always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, I'm going to leave the screen, Deb, and I'm going to give you the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to leave with anyone who's watching right now. Don't worry about how to end this, because when you say goodbye, I will end the show. Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give. You're a real treasure to our community, and I thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. This was so much fun. And there's a siren. I had expected it to be fun. I didn't expect it to be this much fun. Richard, you bring light and kindness to our community. And I'll just end by saying community is the key word. It's been the craziest, weirdest, most difficult time. And I think we've all gotten through it in our own ways. And I think the things, again, that makes us get through it is each other. And to really evaluate. I think we're just at this, I think we're beginning a new chapter. And I think that it's a time to evaluate what's important to me. What do I want to spend my life doing? Who do I want to spend it with? What creativity can I bring? What fun can I have? And what are my values? and all this. And I think that's the big takeaway. And I think it kind of speaks to who we are anyway, because otherwise none of us would be doing this. So I just wish everybody peace and tranquility and joy and courage moving ahead, because it's a really iffy time to try to find our way, no matter who you are in our business. Everybody's having a really hard time just figuring it out and getting back to what feels normal, but doesn't feel normal at all. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, this is how we used to be, and it's not. Nothing is how it used to be. But we'll get back to a newfound joy and love in our community. And thank you so much, Richard. Thank you. This has been a blast, and you are so kind. And everybody, be well and be safe. Bye.